to Whisper Diaries. I'm Alice, your host, for tonight's journey into some of life's most intriguing relationship moments. For those who are new here, this is a space where I share whispered stories of dating and relationships. But tonight, we're venturing into slightly more mysterious and provocative territory. So, get comfortable and let me share some tales of dating mysteries that might just keep you awake tonight. Our first story is called The Disappearing Date. My friend Vanessa met Lucas through a mutual acquaintance at a gallery opening. There was an immediate connection. Lucas was tall, impeccably dressed, and spoke with a slight accent she couldn't quite place. He seemed to know an impressive amount about art, wine, and literature, making conversation flow effortlessly. When he asked for her number, Vanessa didn't hesitate. Their first date was at an exclusive restaurant that Vanessa had tried to get reservations for months earlier without success. Somehow, Lucas had connections that got them not only a table, but the best one in the house. How did you manage this? Vanessa asked, genuinely impressed. Lucas gave a mysterious smile. Let's just say I know people who know people. Throughout dinner, Vanessa noticed something unusual. Lucas seemed to know an uncanny amount about her favourite wine, the author she'd been reading recently, even the fact that she'd spent a semester in Barcelona during college. When she commented on it, he expertly redirected the conversation. The evening progressed wonderfully, with Lucas suggesting they continue their night at a hidden jazz club few people knew about. The club was exactly as promised, intimate, smoky, with incredible music and cocktails that weren't on any menu. They stayed until closing, and Lucas walked her home, kissing her goodnight with just the right balance of passion and restraint. When Vanessa woke the next morning, she found a bouquet of her favourite flowers, peonies, which they hadn't discussed, outside her apartment door with a note suggesting dinner again that weekend. Intrigued and slightly mystified by how he'd discovered her address and favourite flowers, Vanessa agreed to a second date. The second date was even more impressive than the first. Lucas took her to a private viewing of an art installation that wasn't open to the public yet. The artist herself gave them a personal tour, treating Lucas like an old friend. Afterward, they went to a rooftop bar where the staff greeted Lucas by name despite him claiming he'd never been there before. You seem to have connections everywhere, Vanessa observed. Just lucky, I guess, Lucas replied with that same enigmatic smile. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and Vanessa found herself drawn not just to Lucas, but to the air of mystery that surrounded him. After their third date, which involved a spontaneous late-night visit to a bakery that opened its doors just for them at midnight, Vanessa invited Lucas back to her apartment. The night that followed was as mysterious and exciting as the man himself. Lucas seemed to anticipate her desires before she expressed them, creating an experience that left her breathless and slightly bewildered by his intuitive understanding of her preferences. In the morning, Lucas was gone before she woke, leaving only a note saying he had an early meeting but would call her later. Days passed with no call. Vanessa finally messaged him, but the text showed as undelivered. Concerned, she called the number, only to hear an automated message saying it was no longer in service. Confused, Vanessa reached out to the mutual friend who had introduced them. Lucas. I don't know anyone named Lucas, her friend said, genuinely perplexed. At the gallery opening? Tall guy, slight accent. You came to that opening alone, Vanessa. You told me you were practicing being more independent, remember? A chill ran down Vanessa's spine. She searched for Lucas online but found no trace of him on any social media first date had no record of their reservation, the jazz club he'd taken her to. She couldn't even find it again, wandering the street where she was certain it had been. Just as Vanessa was beginning to question her own memory, a package arrived at her door. Inside was a rare first edition of her favourite novel, with a note written in now familiar handwriting. Some mysteries are better left unsolved until we meet again. Vanessa never saw Lucas again, but occasionally, on significant dates, her birthday, the anniversary of their first meeting, little gifts would appear at her door with no sender information. A bottle of that impossible to find wine they'd shared, tickets to exhibitions she'd mentioned wanting to see. The mutual friend maintains to this day that she never introduced Vanessa to anyone named Lucas, and Vanessa has never been able to find the mysterious jazz club or private rooftop bar again. Was Lucas a figment of her imagination, a carefully constructed facade, or something else entirely? Vanessa doesn't have the answers, but the memory of those 3 perfect dates with the mysterious stranger who knew her better than she knew herself continues to both haunt and thrill her. Our second story is the 2 perfect match. Eleanor had been on dating apps for over a year, with mixed results when she matched with Matthew. His profile was impressive. Successful architect, well-travelled, philanthropic, with interests that aligned perfectly with hers. From their very first message exchange, the connection seemed almost too perfect. He responded at just the right frequency. His messages struck the perfect balance between interested and respectful, and somehow he always seemed to say exactly what Eleanor wanted to hear. After 2 weeks of increasingly engaging conversations, they arranged to meet at an upscale wine bar. Matthew was, as his photos promised, extremely handsome, tall with dark hair and striking blue eyes. But it wasn't just his appearance that impressed Elena. It was how perfectly attentive he was. He remembered every detail she'd mentioned in their conversations, asked thoughtful follow-up questions, and shared his own experiences in ways that complemented hers without overshadowing them. "It's almost like you were designed in a lab to be my perfect date," Eleanor joked at one point. Matthew's smile faltered slightly before he laughed. "Just lucky compatibility, I guess." The date went so well that they planned a second for just 2 days later. This pattern continued, with Matthew planning increasingly elaborate and personalised dates. He took her to a cooking class featuring her favourite regional cuisine, a hidden bookstore that specialised in the obscure poetry she loved, and a secret concert by a band she'd mentioned once in passing. It was all so perfect that Eleanor began to feel a nagging sense of unease. Nobody could be this perfect, this attuned to her preferences, this unfailingly charming. During their 5th date, Eleanor decided to test her growing suspicion. When Matthew went to the restroom, she quickly searched his name on her phone, adding his supposed architecture firm. Nothing. She tried various combinations and spellings. Still nothing. When he returned, she casually mentioned a neighbourhood where she previously said she lived. "How are things in Westlake these days? Still loving that coffee shop on the corner?" Matthew asked smoothly. Eleanor had never lived in Westlake, nor had she ever mentioned it. She had deliberately said she lived in Riverdale in their earlier conversations. "It's fine," she replied, watching him carefully. "The coffee shop closed, though." "That's too bad," Matthew said sympathetically. "You mentioned how much you loved their lattes." Eleanor's unease deepened. She excused herself early from the date, claiming a headache. Matthew was perfect search, she reverse image searched his dating profile, photos, and found they belonged to a model from Switzerland. The architecture firm he claimed to work for had no record of him. The more she dug, the less real Matthew seemed. The next day, Eleanor received a text from Matthew checking on her headache and suggesting a museum exhibition for their next date, one featuring an obscure artist she had researched for a paper in college but had never mentioned to him. Eleanor didn't respond. Instead, she blocked his number and deleted the dating app entirely. 3 days later, she received flowers at her workplace, a place she had never told Matthew about, with a note that read, "I know why you're avoiding me. We should talk about your concerns. I can explain everything." Eleanor immediately left work, thoroughly spooked. When she arrived home, she found her apartment door unlocked, though she was certain she had locked it that morning. Nothing was missing or disturbed, but on her kitchen counter sat a folder containing printouts of her social media profiles, online shopping history, and academic records, along with notes about her preferences and interests. On top was a handwritten note: "I just wanted to be perfect for you." Elena filed a police report, but with no full name or verifiable information about Matthew, there was little they could do. She stayed with friends for weeks, changed her phone number, deleted all her social media accounts, and eventually moved to a new apartment. She never heard from Matthew again, but to this day, she occasionally receives gifts that align perfectly with her current interests. Interests she's careful to never share online. Before I continue with our next story, I want to take a moment to thank you for listening to Whisper Diaries. If you're enjoying these more mysterious and intriguing tales of dating encounters, I'd be so grateful if you could like this episode and perhaps leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear about your own mysterious dating experiences or any topics you'd like me to explore in future episodes. Your engagement helps this podcast grow and allows me to continue creating content that resonates with you. Now, let's continue with our next story, which ventures into slightly more risque territory. Our third story is The Accidental Invitation. This story comes from my friend Olivia, who had been chatting with a man named Damien through a dating app for about a week. Their conversations had been engaging, with an undercurrent of flirtation that Olivia found exciting. Damien suggested they meet at a private event he described as a gathering for creative types at an upscale address in the city. Olivia, who worked in graphic design, was intrigued by the opportunity to network while on a first date. The address turned out to be a beautiful townhouse in an exclusive neighbourhood. When Olivia arrived, she was greeted by a woman in an elegant black dress who checked her name against a list. "First time?" the woman asked with a knowing smile. "Yes, Damien invited me," Olivia explained. "Perfect. The house rules are simple. Respect boundaries. Use the colour cards to signal interest or disinterest. And most importantly, what happens here stays here." Before Olivia could ask what that meant, she was ushered into a dimly lit space where about 30 well-dressed people mingled, sipping champagne. The atmosphere was sophisticated, but with an unmistakable charge of electricity in the air. She noticed that some guests were exchanging small coloured cards, and in some corners of the room, people were engaged in what appeared to be very intimate conversations. It took Olivia approximately 7 minutes to realise she wasn't at a networking event for creatives, but rather an exclusive dating mixer with distinctly adult undertones. The colour cards the hostess had mentioned were apparently used to indicate interest in various activities that went she said, now completely bewildered. This is the creative gathering you mentioned. Damien's eyes widened. Oh no. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I invited you to coffee for tomorrow. I was just mentioning this event in passing because I had to attend for a friend who organises it. I never meant to suggest you should come here. As they pieced together their conversation history, they realised the miscommunication. Damien had texted, "Have to go to this private creative gathering tomorrow night. Address is 1421 Willow Lane. Not my scene, but promised a friend. Coffee after work Thursday instead." Olivia had interpreted this as an invitation to join him at the gathering, completely missing the suggestion about coffee. Meanwhile, a woman in a deep red dress approached them, offering Olivia a selection of coloured cards with various symbols printed on them. "First-timers often start with green," she suggested helpfully. "Yellow if you're feeling more adventurous." Damien quickly intervened. "She's not actually. We had a miscommunication. She's not here for the event." The woman looked between them, arched an eyebrow, and smiled knowingly. "Well, happy accidents can be the universe's way of expanding our horizons." She glided away, leaving Olivia and Damien in awkward silence. "I should probably go," Olivia said, her face burning with embarrassment. "Let me walk you out," Damien offered, looking equally mortified. As they made their way to the door, the hostess who had greeted Olivia looked surprised. "Leaving so soon? The evening has barely begun." "There's been a misunderstanding," Damien explained. "Olivia isn't actually. She thought this was a different kind of gathering." The hostess looked amused. "We get that more often than you'd think. The invitation system can be ambiguous. Will we see you again, Olivia?" "I don't think so," Olivia managed to reply, though the entire experience had certainly piqued her curiosity about what exactly happened at these gatherings. Outside, Damien apologised profusely for the confusion. "I'm so sorry. I should have been clearer in my message. This must have been incredibly awkward for you." To his surprise, Olivia started laughing. "Well, it's definitely the most interesting misunderstanding I've ever had on a first date. And technically, we still haven't had our first date. Coffee tomorrow still stands." Damien looked relieved. "Absolutely. A very public, very normal coffee shop, I promise." They did have coffee the next day, which led to dinner the following week, and eventually a relationship. To this day, they laugh about their almost first date at the mysterious gathering. And while Olivia occasionally wonders what might have happened if she'd stayed and accepted those coloured cards, she's quite content with how things turned out, though she did keep the elegant black invitation that arrived at her apartment a month later, addressed specifically to both her and Damien, should they ever wish to explore new horizons together. Our final story tonight is The Suspicious Coincidence. Rebecca had recently moved to a new city for work and was using dating apps to meet people. After a few underwhelming dates, she matched with Adrian, who suggested meeting at a small cafe in her neighbourhood. The date went surprisingly well. Adrian was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in her life and career tasks. The end of the evening, they made plans for a second date the following weekend. 3 days later, Rebecca was shopping at a local grocery store when she spotted Adrian in the produce section. She approached to say hello, and he seemed pleasantly surprised to see her. "I live just around the corner," he explained. What a small world. Rebecca thought nothing of it until the next day, when she was leaving her yoga studio and saw Adrian walking past. He claimed he was meeting a friend for lunch nearby. 2 days later, she spotted him at the coffee shop across from her office building Again, he had a reasonable explanation. He was attending a meeting in the area. The coincidences continued. Rebecca saw Adrian at the park where she jogged, at the bookstore she frequented, and even at the same movie theatre one evening when she went out with co-workers. Each time he had a plausible reason for being there, but the frequency of these chance encounters was becoming unsettling. For their second official date, Adrian suggested a restaurant that happened to be Rebecca's favourite, one she didn't remember mentioning to him. During dinner, he referenced a book she'd been reading, one she was certain she hadn't discussed with him. "How did you know I was reading that?" she asked directly. Adrian looked momentarily flustered. "Didn't you mention it on our first date?" Rebecca was sure she hadn't, but she let it go. As they were leaving the restaurant, Adrian suggested they walk through a nearby park, the same one where she took her morning jogs. "It's beautiful at night," he said. "The path around the lake is particularly nice." Rebecca stopped walking. "How do you know about the lake path?" "The lake isn't visible from the main entrance." Adrian hesitated just a beat too long. "A friend mentioned it." "Adrian," Rebecca said firmly, "am I going crazy, or do you seem to show up everywhere I go, and know things about me I haven't told you?" His expression changed subtly. "Can we sit down somewhere and talk?" They found a bench, and Adrian took a deep breath. "I should have been honest with you from the beginning. I'm a private investigator, and I was hired to find out some information about you." Rebecca felt a chill run through her. "Who hired you? And why?" "Your ex-boyfriend, Thomas. He moved to this city too, apparently following you after your breakup. He hired me to keep track of your routines, who you're dating, that sort of thing." Rebecca was stunned. She had ended her relationship with Thomas 6 months ago, before moving cities specifically to get a fresh start away from what had become an increasingly controlling relationship. "So, our matching on the dating app, not a coincidence," Adrian admitted. "I created the profile after learning about your interests." Rebecca's unease deepened. She excused herself early from the date, claiming a headache. Adrian was perfectly understanding, of course, offering to call her a car and asking if she needed anything for her pain. When she got home, Rebecca did a more thorough search. She reverse image searched his dating profile photos and found they belonged to a model from Switzerland. The private investigation firm he claimed to work for had no record of him. The more she dug, the less real Adrian seemed. The next day, Rebecca received a text from Adrian checking on her headache and suggesting a museum exhibition for their next date, one featuring an obscure artist she had researched for a paper in college but had never mentioned to him. Rebecca didn't respond. Instead, she blocked his number and deleted the dating app entirely. 3 days later, she received a package at her workplace, a place she had never told Adrian about, with a note that read, "I know why you're avoiding me. We should talk about your concerns. I can explain everything." Rebecca immediately left. Work, thoroughly spooked. When she arrived home, she found her apartment door unlocked, though she was certain she had locked it that morning. Nothing was missing or disturbed, but on her kitchen counter sat a folder containing printouts of her social media profiles, online shopping history, and academic records, along with notes about her preferences and interests. On top was a handwritten note, "I just wanted to be perfect for you." Rebecca filed a police report, but with no full name or verifiable information about Adrian, there was little they could do. She stayed with friends for weeks, changed her phone number, deleted all her social media accounts, and eventually moved to a new apartment. She never heard from Adrian again, but to this day, She occasionally receives gifts that align perfectly with her current interests she's careful to never share online. As I bring this episode to a close, I hope these whispered tales of mysterious and intriguing dating encounters have provided both entertainment and a moment of relaxation. These stories remind us that in the world of modern dating, sometimes the line between exciting mystery and concerning behaviour can be remarkably thin. Before we part ways for tonight, I want to thank you for spending this time with me. If you've enjoyed this episode of Whisper Diaries, please consider liking this episode and leaving a comment sharing your thoughts. I'd love to hear about your own mysterious dating encounters or any topics you'd like me to explore in future episodes. Your engagement truly helps this podcast grow and allows me to continue creating content you enjoy. In our next episode, we'll explore new territories with fresh stories to both amuse and soothe you. Perhaps you have suggestions, a particular life experience you'd like to hear whispered about. I'm always open to your ideas and appreciate your input in shaping future content. Remember that while mystery adds spice to dating, trust and honest communication form the foundation